While playing hide and seek, Tiff interrupts Kirby, Tap, Lololo and Lalala to get prepared for the anniversary of C-Rebroom and his wife's anniversary. Unfortunately, while stumbling upon their bedroom, Kirby finds the ring and eats it, but it immediately realizes that it isn't so tasty, so he decides to spit it out, and instantly regrets it. Turns out, C-Rebroom never gave her the ring because of how nervous he gets every year, so they try to find it and take it back, but it apparently gets mistaken for being part of an ancient civilization. And because there wouldn't be an episode of Kirby without a monster from enemy, DDD orders one who can find rings with its nose. I like it well enough. I don't know how you could have made this story more interesting, but I've seen more interesting episodes. Oh my god, did the people behind the titles of the episodes of the English dub stop trying? Abusement park? Seriously? Like, yeah, DDD abuses Escargoon at all, but the episode isn't about making an amusement park that tortures him. Why the pun? Does it have anything to do with abusing anyone? No? Is it because of how terrible Kirby's singing is? One day King DDD tells the people of Capital that Castle DDD will be turned into an amusement park. Some of the Cappies are happy because they interpret this as DDD making up for his past mistakes. That reminds me of a Sonic game with a similar plot. That quote perfectly represents King DDD and his relationship with Nightmare Enterprises. For a pretty interesting premise, this episode is kinda weak. Like in Island of the Lost Warrior with its one-off character, it feels like the plot changes constantly. The episode is about DDD's supposed redemption arc, until it predictably turns into a trap once Tiff and Co fall into the dungeons of the castle after one of the attractions malfunctions and defeat the DDD stone statues. So now they want to warn the Cappies about it because DDD is plotting something? He only put you in danger once, like yeah, he wanted to armor put Kirby back to his place, but that happens in almost every episode. Then it turns into DDD giving 5 million dead end and some watermelons to the winner of a singing competition with a sentient microphone. Kirby eats it and gets sent to enemy, but because it's too loud, he gets sent back to Castle DDD and destroys it. What? I don't know. Whenever I watch this episode, I do enjoy myself. But when it comes to talking about it, it's one of the messiest of the show. At least the thing about the ring had a consistent plot. I don't know why I place it beside, honestly. It does something that I hate about the worst episodes of the anime, but I ended up liking it anyway. Plus, it was fun seeing Kirby sing the outro. Seeing, not hearing. They're so freaking adorable. Escargoon makes a formula that turns everything into big, brutal monsters. So King DDD and him go kidnap Dynablade's baby, and she goes upon Kirby and the entirety of Capital. It's just Kirby's excellent adventure again, but with much less Kirby torture. And by Kirby torture, I mean Dynablade still attacks him for like a few minutes and that's it. Dynablade still attacks the village. We still have that scene where Kirby talks about Dynablade and her chick with the same cool up style. It's the same episode, only with more Dyna chick moments. It's obviously much better than Kirby's excellent adventure. I mean, any Dynablade episode is going to be better than Kirby's excellent adventure, but that's pretty much it. It's cute and all, but I'm starting to see why Dynablade doesn't get to be the major focus of an episode often, because most plots have to rely on the same misunderstandings. Kirby accidentally walks into Wispywood's forest as he gulps down every apple he can find, so his friends go on a quest to find him. Unfortunately, because this is Wispywood's forest, they get lost. so they decide to camp for the night and put on a fire which ticks off wispy woods. But that's okay, because King DDD quickly chomps him down and all the other trees turn the forest into a golf course. Wait, what? Yeah, whoever is attached to the DDD from the games must have been for a downward spiral if/when they watch this episode. Obviously, the Cappies protest about it for a while, and Kirby finds the right apple to revive Wispy Woods. Yes, that's how trees grow in Cappy Town, don't question it. It's by no means boring or bad, but for the first episode starring Wispy Woods, it's a bit underwhelming. I do think there's one episode about him that's a bit better. Tiff digs with Curio to find some ancient artifacts, with Taff and Kirby getting distracted, playing tag and pranking her sister. However, those pranks end up helping her more than inconvenience her. Is that how you say that word? As she finds a stone coffin of their ancestors. Also, they think. Turns out that coffin contained the skeleton of one of DDD's ancestors. The king orders the townsfolk to dig in the area, and surprise surprise, they find more items that resemble the penguin. Suspicious about it, Tiff decides to investigate in the middle of the night, and finds out that Curio was brewing DDD team relics. She quickly snaps some photos and walks away. The next day she decides to have a talk about it with Curio, telling him that he should stop building those fake artifacts. Unfortunately, since he's working for you-know-who, she gets tied up, and Taff and Kirby too. Curio tries to go along with their plain speech, before eventually coming clean and revealing the Cappies were all bamboozled. Oh, also the artifacts are monster and Kirby fights him at the end of something. It's fine. It's neat seeing a secondary character getting an episode focused about their interests, but I think the premise is a bit weak, and the execution doesn't make it any better. To be fair, it's never really boring. The DDD Stone has a cool design, and I do like the part where Curio stems up for Kirby and strikes the monster's foot with his pickaxe. Even though I always found weird that they follow up the copyability transformation sequence with Tiff just telling the audience what just happened over reused footage. Like, it's supposed to be a flashback. A flashback to something that just happened. Also, I forgot this scene and how bad the animation is here. Not that it looks bad, but only Kawasaki and that guy with a green shirt look like they're actually digging. It's very likely due to the objects the others are using, but come on, you're not even trying. King DDD orders an energy drink from Nightmare Enterprises, and it becomes Cappy Town's new fad. That's it, and it's a lot of fun. They also have Macho-san's team play at one point, that was cool, and we see Kirby going on a rampage because of how hyperactive he is. That was funny.
So long, Bowser!
Or should I say, the Lola factor. Yeah, you wanna know why Lola and Lalala had their initials changed in the 4Kids dub? Initially I thought it was because those two were a monster called Lola. Lola is also the name of the girl bunny from the Looney Tunes franchise. So maybe 4Kids changed the names to avoid getting sued by Warner Brothers. Except that Lola is one of the 300 most popular girls' names in the US. Warner Brothers doesn't own the name. 4Kids literally changed their names because they wanted to. After being tasked with being split apart to do two things for the king, Lolo and Lalala realize just how much they stay together, and go to see Rerum to know about their past. But his wife Fendi, I'm not saying ladylike, okay, refused to tell them of their kids about it. Turns out, there were two halves of an entity known as Lola, and wished to keep it a secret, until Kirby finds out. Meanwhile, DDD wants to have fun, and there's a new monster called Slice and Splice, who can swap people's bodies or split them in two. I like the monster's catchphrase, and the scene where he swaps the cappies, Rick and Tokori's bodies, is a bit amusing, but other than that, I don't care much for him. Is what I would be saying if the episode focused on just Didi messing around with the village. That passes by quickly, and when it gets to splicing Kirby and Gelf, it gets good, like pretty good. I'm still more interested in Lololo and Lalala's past, but the boy and girl Kirby stuff we get in the second half of the episode is a nice change of pace. Escargoon and King Didi's daydreams about what their boy and girl counterparts would be did get a small chuckle out of me, I'll admit.
Oh no!
For a backstory episode, it's definitely one of the weaker ones in my opinion, but it slightly makes up for the stuff that happens in the second half, and Lololo and Lalala do finally get their answers at the end, so good for them. Also, a fun fact, the Stubbs, Slide and Splice wheels have the faces of Mr. Shine and Mr. Bright. It's crazy to me how Heavy Mall is the only boss in Kirby's Adventure that didn't appear in the anime. Even Nightmare's ball form is in the anime. Season 2 started off with a bang, and the funniest thing is that it's another character falling in love plot. One day, Tiff, Taff and Kirby decide to go to Wispy Woods Forest to see what he's up to. Eventually they realize a flower started to grow, and decide to call it Lovely. They have fun together until Didi takes the flower and turns it into a sentient creature who can now walk and emit a quite sinister laugh. She tries to sap Wispy's strength, but is thankfully perished by Kirby. Wispy is sad that he lost her, but she promises she'll come back one day. Not as a monster, but as a cat. Like with the amusement park, it should be lower than it actually is, but I'll die on the hill that this is a pretty good episode. Yes, it's just another X falls in love with Y plot, but I'll give it a pass this time. Wispy Woods is supposed to be this middle-aged / old man figure. I appreciate when that archetype gets a love interest. Of course, with the way they interact it feels more platonic than romantic, but you know what I mean. Seeing them bond and get along so well, it's awesome. It's like I'm watching Kirby's pet peeve again. Also, maybe it's just me, but the scene where Wispy Woods begins to rot gets me every time. Like, I only felt sorry for him and the other chopped up trees in Beware Wispy Woods, but this outright made me feel uneasy. Oh, and fun fact, Season 2's version of Kirby March is slightly different. Some of the abilities shown have been changed. Sword and Stone were replaced by Hook and Dice respectively. That's it, I just think it was neat. And no, I'm not using the actual name the English dub went with. Pay as much as you want, I don't care. Okay, that's enough. So, King Didi opens an elementary school because Taff and his friends do some graffiti of him and Escargoon, which are laughably horrendous, and everybody is forced to attend it, even the adults. It's pretty good. Not the most solid Kirby episode out there, but I still enjoyed it quite a bit. The teachers doing deranged or unhinged stuff was pretty funny, and heck, it's not a case of mischaracterization, or however you call it, as we know that it's the act that mind controls them. It's even implied early on. Before I move on to the next episode, I'd like to address a criticism that's related to not just this episode, but the school trilogy as a whole. Some think that they imply that school is best in moderation or when you feel like going there. Not really. Like, yes, that's what Tiff says at the end, but she doesn't go on a minute tangent on why that is. Maybe it's supposed to be a joke moral? You know, in the sense that, haha, this character is usually in the right sense that going to school almost every day is stupid. It feels like it's in the same link as a kid's show telling that it's okay to steal or lie. They aren't necessarily implying that you should take this moral at face value. Yes, if you're a kid, you may take it at face value because you're not old enough to understand sarcasm. But I'm not a kid. If it's supposed to be serious, I mean, do you see how bad their school is? Teachers beat kids up for not knowing the answer to math problems that are mostly tough at best and insufferable at worst. Make portions that scare them or outright sabotage the school and train them like they're going to war during gym class. It also mocks BS things some teachers do, like punishing the entire class because one of them did something wrong. We all mourn about how unfair our school is. Do you know that this thing is supposed to be an elementary school? And sure, the school was blown up at the end, ditto in the other school episodes, but it's not like it was intentional, and it's not like the kids don't attend school after that, as seen in the ending where Buttercup recounts the plot of this episode to the students. I think this episode, as well as the whole school trilogy in general, is harmless, and whoever gets these impressions is looking too deeply at a cartoon about a puffball who beats up evil creatures on a daily basis. You don't have to like it, but don't act like this is some anti-school propaganda or something.
次の問題。カービィくん、答えは？ポヨじゃない！
I can't believe it's not Poyo. After being humiliated on television for getting a pie on his face, King Dedede decides to start a pie fight against them, which soon turns into a fight against the citizens of Kirby Town, turning the Dedede 1-minute cooking show into the Executing by Pie show. However, he quickly gets mad for barely being able to eat Kirby with them, to the point where he orders a monster that's all about disgusting pies, just so Kirby can't eat them, and Dedede can laugh at him when they strike. Oh, and also the pie fights become a new trend in Capitan from this episode only, because why not? This episode is just dumb fun, that's all. You may not get that feeling I had while watching it, but after a couple of mediocre episodes, this was all I needed. Just a simple story that doesn't take itself too seriously. Kirby eating almost each pie was mildly funny, and the episode even goes to show eventually that even Kirby doesn't like eating certain types of food. A much better Waddle Dees centered episode. The Nightmare Enterprises salesman told Skinny Dedede once again to pay his bills before he can order another monster, so he thinks of a way to make more money. He turns his head to the Waddle Dees and decides to sell them. Unfortunately, his attempts end in vain, as no matter how many of them get sold, he doesn't get any dead end in return. Like how this episode was handled, it could have easily just been the Waddle Dees messing around with the Cappies until the king orders them to come back to him. And while that's what happens, kinda, it doesn't just do that. It also goes out of its way to give them over to never take your employees, subjects, people you love for granted, because they could be gone at any moment and make your life less exciting at best and harder if you depended on them at worst. Sure, there are episodes in the anime that imply this, and sure, we know that King Dedede, at least in this continuity, is a man-child, but I still would like to give the anime kudos for making one where he himself acknowledges this. It's also done in a pretty mature way. We're shown, rather than told, why what he did was wrong, and how it affected his life negatively. I mean, yeah, Tiff tells the Waddle Dees that they're not objects to be sold but people with rights and all, but that's the only instance where I think the message is slapped on your face. And even then, it's not even done in an unsubtle manner. We also get to see the Waddle Dees making the Cappies' lives easier and happier, further proof that the episode is following the show don't tell rule. With that said, I think that King Dedede starving to the point where he wants to eat Dynablade's cheek was a bit too specific. Like, we're only doing this to amplify the stakes, give Dynablade a reason to appear without being just a cameo, and once again, give Kirby a bigger role than he deserved. But as a whole, I still like this episode.
心配なら首に紐つけて飼えばいいんだ。ん？カービィはペットじゃなかったよな。
会いたかった。
何これポモ
How does Kirby know that homosexuality is a thing? A new face visits Kirby Town, in particular restaurant Kawasaki. This is Chef Nagoya, one of Kawasaki's classmates during cooking school. He looks like Nago from Kirby's Dreamland 3, can cook better than Kawasaki, and makes all kinds of cat-related puns. To impress his friend, Kawasaki begs the citizens of Kirby Town to pretend this food actually tastes good. But that plan quickly falls apart when he overhears a private talk between himself, Tiff and Taff. King DDD sets up a cooking contest between the two of them to see if Kawasaki deserves staying in Kirby Town or he should be replaced with Nagoya. It's kind of like a better version of a recipe from Disaster's plot, but this episode really made me realize just how miserable Kawasaki is in the anime. He works hard on his cooking day after day, and yet, with the exception of Kirby, anybody who enjoys his food is an outsider to Kirby Town, and the people he met at cooking school are incredibly rude towards him. It's such a sad character. Watching the next episode previewing episode 85, I was worried he was going to be a monster in disguise a la the Big Taste Test. Or maybe Nagoya was never a good person to begin with. And let me tell you, him being a jerk and getting into a fight with Kawasaki definitely didn't give a good impression. With that said, he does stand up for him when he realizes Kawasaki's food was sabotaged by escargot with really hot pepper. He even gets back at King DDD with some unbearably hot lobster. And he admits that while he may be the better chef, Kawasaki is the more popular one. And for good reason. Despite all of his past failures, he never gave up. And never will. And that is something to be applauded. Also Kirby fights a lobster at the end. What? Tafro never say that! This is a kids show! Anyways, DDD's no job is perhaps the weakest Kirby gets a new pet episode, but it's also the most interesting. It's not exactly that kind of episode. We do have Kirby meeting a new friend, bonding with them, and the ending is a sad, bittersweet goodbye as the two part ways. But this plot runs into the trouble of being stuck in an episode that's mostly about Kirby Town dealing with the season shift. Kirby Town is a certain country, thus no one in Kirby Town during the winter season has ever learned about, let alone seen snow. And the episode is about the Kirbys enjoying all the activities during this cold time of year. Snowboarding, snowball fights, and whatnot. It's a shame that that plot overshadows the subplot about Kirby and Chili trying to bond together. Speaking of which, Chili is probably the only one out of the three pets that is actively trying to harm Kirby. Okay, he's actually trying to off him, but they could have done more with that. I'm trying to say the same four things in different ways, I swear I'm trying. We don't get to meet him until the end of the first half, and even then, the episode kinda rushes through their character arc. Chili initially wants Kirby out of the picture, but when he tries to harm him in his sleep, and he has a presumably wholesome dream involving them, they can't bring themselves to hurt him. It's like the episode wants to paint a relationship where Kirby is still supportive of a character, no matter how much they put him in danger, but I don't think they went far enough. Why not have a scene or moment where Chili and Kirby unabashedly love each other? A scene where they're playing or eating food and one isn't trying to kill the other? Chili does help Kirby get into the Ice Dragon's body, defeating him and bringing back Summer, but that's kinda the bare minimum. They didn't have one of the biggest chemistries, and I think that's a shame because despite being another Kirby gets a new pet plot, this and the later one do add something new to his character, and they just don't manage to reach their full potential. Bad name aside, Escar Gone is perhaps one of the most misunderstood episodes of the anime, and it's mostly because of the plot subversion. We all know how bland amnesia stories can be, right? somebody hits their red out and they suddenly don't remember their friends, family, etc. Well, this episode turns their idea to its head. Now it's about everybody forgetting somebody, obviously Escargoon in this case, and it's all thanks to the not so cleverly titled monster Eraser. Because he possessed him in his sleep, now everybody forgot him, even His Majesty. The first problem you may have with it is that it takes the "It's a Wonderful Life" approach. Escargoon looks for somebody who remembers him, the person they find doesn't remember them, rinse and repeat. And while I think that does get a little repetitive, I've always interpreted it as a build-up for the interactions with him and Kirby. Since he cannot talk, Escargoon assumes that this baby talk is meant to translate as something like, "Yes, I do remember you, Escargoon." And honestly, having his number one enemy be the one who supposedly remembers him is bittersweet. I wish that Kirby could talk in the anime so that it lied to him, claiming he does remember him, but only to make him feel better. That would be really touching and show how much Kirby cares even for his rivals. Sakurai really shot himself in the foot when he said he shouldn't have talked in the anime. Now, why isn't Escargoon's mother here? Why not have her be the one to lie about remembering him for comfort? That's the $1 million question from this episode. Personally, I think having Kirby be Escargoon's seek for comfort in the episode is better because 1. The story wouldn't have changed that much, and 2. I do think this scene builds character. King Dedede and especially Escargoon all take shots at Kirby, but deep down they do care about him and don't actually want to kill him. Having this scene, but with Escargoon's mother, would only state the obvious. That her mother cares about his son, and like, don't most mothers care for their sons anyway? Yes, he does get tortured to get Eraser out of his body, but I don't think that brings the episode down, at least for me. It's kinda like how Kirby beats down King Dedede whenever he gets possessed in the games. Sure, violence is never the answer, but what else is he supposed to do? It's not like there's any antidotes or other ways for dark matter or jump arts to get out of his body. It's the same thing here. Torturing Escargoon is pretty much the only way to take it out. However, I do agree with the ending's general consensus. Having Kirby nail Eraser and being the forgotten one was just silly, but I think it wraps up the episode with a fun note. Escargoon is far from one of the best episodes of the show, but it's not that bad. Trust me, this is the only good Escargoon Top 2 episode you're going to get out of the anime. The one that started it all. And honestly, even today it's still a pretty good start to the soon-to-be famous cartoon. One fateful night, a monster was caught eating Captain Sheep, and after confronting King Dedede and his new pet to no avail, the civilians go to Kabu Canyon for guidance, revealing that not only can it destroy the entire city, but that soon a hero will come to defeat it. As if on cue, Kirby crash lands on a hill and after saving Tiff's life, becomes friends with her, Taff, and all of her comrades. Meanwhile, Dedede and Escargoon are trying to fix Kirby's starship in hopes that he will leave Dreamland, but they soon find out that this pet was evil this entire time, getting Dedede hypnotized in the process. Thankfully, Kirby manages to snap Dedede back, defeats the monster, and cements his role as the town's local hero. You might argue that it's far from being the best episode of the series, or even the best first episode in general. It definitely runs into the problem of introducing a bit too many characters. But for what it tries to do, I do think it did okay. It certainly establishes the characters you're going to know and love for the next 20-minute segments. I actually really like this episode. Again, it's nowhere near the best the show has to offer, but I'd lie if I said it wasn't iconic. I like how Tiff envisions Kirby to be this stereotypical knight in shining armor, before getting her heart shafted when he realizes he's actually just a goofball. And as for Kirby, I find the way he's portrayed here to be great. One complaint he usually gets is that he usually blends in the background, doing cute stuff or being a Pokemon, but I think they mostly avoided that here. He does get plenty of screen time and we get to know a lot about him. I love how early on it's established that he isn't perfect. He gets owned by the smaller mollusks, and he isn't exactly a saint either, as he literally gobbles down every single food and drink at the dinner table. He's still a good person at the end of the day, but there's more to him than just he's the powerful but good one. One final thing that I want to point out is how he never really says Pollo here. Instead he only makes grounds and says the occasional name. Knucklejaw becomes the biggest employee of enemy and begins summoning all sorts of enemies. Kirby tries to inhale them, but unfortunately, no matter how many he is, they just keep on coming. This is all intentional, as the weaker Kirby is, the weaker he'll be at fighting the strongest monster, Mesher. It's a pretty entertaining episode, even with the simple premise, but it kinda feels like a repeat of the first Knucklejaw episode. This episode feels like Knucklejaw redoing his character arc from his debut episode, hunting down Kirby, until the last 4 to 5 minutes when it bizarrely pivots to Knucklejaw fighting with Kirby instead of against Kirby, because the intention was always to trick enemy into sending their strongest monster against Kirby, so he could defeat it twice as easily once it joins Kirby's forces. Yeah, they fight together in this episode. That was kinda cool. So basically Knucklejaw is a twist hero now. Isn't initially good but turns out bad in the end, or is initially a bad guy before going to a character arc. I think he's still a villain, but he was actually the hero all along. I don't know, call me biased, but this may be the weakest Knucklejaw episode. It doesn't make it bad at all, but it's not exactly my thing. Dinosaurs are cool, what can I say?
わしは夢で何度も見たから恐竜は生きておる
One day, Tiff reads her friends a book about dinosaurs. Tokori bumps on a cliff face, totally not because the blood called for it, and he finds a bone of a dinosaur fossil. Not long after, the other Kirby starts digging to find more of their bones, including Kindididi. He doesn't know much about them, but he loves them and wishes to see them in person. The only problem is that dinosaurs went extinct multiple centuries ago. But he doesn't give in. He constantly denies it. He persists. He makes books about how they're real. He even orders the customer service to sell a doctor specialized in reviving dinosaurs, using lizards, fossils, and a little bit of otters' DNAs. The next day he opens up a dinosaur theme park, and we get to see the new dinosaur-like abominations in all their glory. The second part is about the Kirby's having to deal with said abominations, and it was pretty fun. The design they use for them look awesome. They even make a Kirby-based dinosaur at one point, and they replicate the fire cover ability scene. Although his eyes look pretty similar. Nah, it's probably a coincidence.
世界で一番間抜けは
でへか
次の間抜けはエスカルゴ
The Kirby Quiz is a good episode, that's really about it. It's never been one of my favorites, but compared to the pillowcase, this does a good job at throwing callbacks to previous episodes without it being just reused footage. By turning it into a quiz, not only do you make it more interesting, but you also give the viewer something to do, other than just watching it. Heck, the opening scene is pretty similar to the one from the pillowcase. This episode does kinda make the protagonist win just because, but we don't really see either of the 5 team getting a reward, and the one that does gets a joke reward, so there's that. It's also got some pretty decent jokes, like everybody guessing Kirby's comrade being Knucklejaw, except Kindididi, who just guesses himself because of how egocentric he is, and the enemy salesman just playing wiKirby's debut for no reason and treating it like a question. I didn't need my ears to be assaulted though. I don't have much to say about Going Bonkers. It's a pretty cute episode about a has-been circus ape training with his #1 idol and proving that he's a real warrior. Back when I was talking about the episode centered around Kain, I said that this episode was that one done right, and yeah, I still stand by that claim. It introduces one of the most iconic Kirby enemies. Bonkers is obviously a big Kirby fanatic and loves him, but not in a romantic, oh I want you and me to be a couple even though you're a child and I might be an adult, Lamar way. The episode has some jokes that don't involve Kirby and Bonkers' awkward friendship, to say the least. Really, my only problem with it is that King Dedede suddenly turns him into a monster and Kirby has to fight him. But there have been many episodes that shoved in monsters for the sake of it. There are much worse cases too. And hey, Bonkers' monster design looks pretty cool. It also gives us an excuse to see Gamer Kirby make the first appearance in so long. Oh, and also this episode treats the anime as a whole like it's some show within its lore. Yeah, I don't know why they did that. It could have worked just as well, but they took the show within a show approach. Wild. King Dedede thinks that Capitan is doing some anti-government stuff because apparently he has never heard about sketching or drawing. Weird, but okay. So of course, even after understanding that what they're doing isn't against him, he sabotages them and builds an art museum. He initially tells the others to make their own drawings, but being Dedede, he orders and puts famous paintings and sculptures instead, even if they're worth millions. It's pretty good, and not because the best painting of all time, Liberty Linked in the People, appears at one point. We get to learn a bit about paintings and art history in general, and we even get to see some toilet humor, which was actually kind of fun in my opinion.
陛下に芸術が分かったら変です。
カービィとデデデだけは無理だよ。
あの二人は放っておきましょう。
Wait, wrong clip.
これはカービィでご飯を食べ過ぎたカービィがうんちをしているクソリアリズムぞい。
The joke isn't that characters from cartoons for kids are talking about going #2. The joke is that King Dedede is, intentionally or not, mocking art as a whole, especially realism and the citizens of Capitan, but it has no effect because they just laugh it off. We also get to see Paint Roller and Paint Kirby being a natural ability with actual attacks and not just the one-time ability from Kirby's fan pack. This episode aired a decade and a half before Star Allies introduced Artist, so having it be a fully fledged ability must have been really fascinating at the time.
姉ちゃん、なんか料理作れ。え、私が？だって女じゃん。なんですって？ブン、もう一度言ってみなさい。姉ちゃん料理できねえの？
One fateful night, Taff's mother, still not saying her name, has a girls' night with the other wives of Capitan, but she didn't make dinner, so Sir Hebron decides to take matters into his own hands and makes a meal for his kids. The next day, he becomes famous and every man begs him to teach him how to cook. It's good, one of the best episodes of the entire show even. The trope of men not doing women things because they're not women can be a bit annoying at times, but in this case I'll give it a pass because it's more so meant to be taken away as they aren't good at cooking because they themselves suck at cooking, rather than they aren't good at cooking because they're not women. And I really like the message that Tiff's father shouldn't be held in such a regard for his skills, but for his art, because he did something out of selflessness. My only gripe with this episode is, again, the fact that it has to include a monster to give Kirby a purpose, but at least here it's done in a slightly more clever way. The episode has a cooking contest in its second half, before Tiff's speech anyway, use parts of the robot Slicer Dicer, so at least the inclusion of the monster isn't completely pointless, just mostly pointless. Another fun special. Thief catches Tagore and Gengu dumping their merchandise that didn't sell well, and admits that even then they should at least try to find a way to make money off of it. So they decide to combine the chocolate capsules and minifigurines after she suggests them to do it in hopes that more people will buy them. Surprise, surprise, the idea worked. Actually no, saying it worked would be an understatement. It became the new hot thing in Kirby Town. All the kids go mad over collecting all the Star Warrior figurines. Some even beg their parents to give them more money or outright steal their wallets just to collect the others. It gets to the point where even the adults get on trying to complete the collection. Even Kindy Didi and Escargoon. All the men are collecting them actually, and who could blame them? We have the one-off character Yamikage, the satire of post-World War II Japanese soldiers Sir Cosmos, Meta Knight because famous thanks to its figurine, and so many other Star Warriors get to be made into minifigurines. Meanwhile, Kirby gets to eat all the chocolate that contains them. Lucky him. This episode reminded me of how I used to be like Tuff and his friends. I wasn't that desperate for more toys, but I remember when my father used to buy me almost every car from Cars 2. I was quite the spoiled child. Ah, good times. The first part is all about those wonderful figurines, all culminating in DDD getting arrested for trying to steal the Meta Knight one. Enraged, the king collaborates with the enemy salesman to make a collection of brand new figurines. This time about 5 fighters. Again, they become the new hot trend of the town, but try as they might, they only get generic figurines. But there's a catch. Those figurines have an upgrade. If they hit the moonlight, they become real and kick the heck out of you. What a deal, am I right? The second part is about Kirby having a battle royale with those 5 fighters, with unique battles and high stakes. Special mentions to the Tai Chi Elder battle for being one of the cutest moments of the entire show. Yes, I think it's that good. The Rebel Sumo Master one for the Nekodamashi, and the Dyson one for having Kirby wear those yellow gloves which would be included in a Fighter Kirby plushie a few years later. It's one of the less good specials this show has to offer, but a really entertaining one nonetheless.
Eh?
Just charming. Chef Shitek, I just misspelled the word, I sure know English, sends a letter to Kindy Didi, announcing that he's gonna visit the castle to criticize its food, and because he's the only chef, Kawasaki is forced to work for Kindy Didi, but after realizing how much his food sucks, he tricks him into cooking Kirby for kicks and giggles. Once he convinces him that he's full of Z-Bone. It's incredibly funny to me how a bit of continuity is that Kirby actually was almost cooked and eaten in an episode. It was a joke in Kirby's Excellent Adventure, but here we get to see Kirby getting nearly killed by Kawasaki. For real sis, relaxing messages, sprinkle salt and all, which is the closest thing you will get from him doing something heinous. I didn't realize how late into the show they started to show us how horrible Kawasaki's cooking is. I mean, we're in episode 11, so it's not that late, but I expected it earlier. Him being a terrible chef and making disgusting food, but Kirby and other one-off characters liking it anyways is like the most famous trait about anime Kawasaki. DDD tricking Kawasaki into thinking that Kirby is Simon is interesting. It's a shame they never really explored this aspect again. Like, I know it's just DDD telling lies, but what if Kirby was actually full of Simon? What if Simon was a monster in the anime and Kirby was a variation of it? That would have been fascinating. Also fake Shitek gets cooked by the sun, Lemao. Meta Knight challenges Kirby to a duel. That's about it. It's definitely one of the best Meta Knight episodes, not only because we get to see a cool fight between these two, but because it shows us more sides of MK. Many people in the fanbase just see him as Kirby father figure who would hang out with him and pretty much do just about everything. And I think this episode does great at showing a balance. That is indeed Kirby's guardian, but he has an edge that keeps him from being one of his friends. Not to mention that this same edge has a purpose beyond making him an antagonist, teaching him a very important skill. If MK was being too soft and going easy on him, not only would that be out of character, but this moment wouldn't really leave much of an impact on Kirby. The anime is about defeating Nightmare after all. He's gotta learn lessons throughout those episodes, even if it means hurting him in the process. I'll have to say that I prefer this part though. The second half where Bugsy enters the picture is by no means bad. In fact, it does show more of Kirby's weaknesses, but it's just not as good, you know? Then again, we do have this cool moment where MK absolutely destroys his boss. So that's gotta be something.
メストーナ、私は陛下の忠実なしもべです。
なんだこれ。
No! This fucking game sucks, dude!
I don't have much to say, just another solid episode. After realizing that Kirby doesn't have a house, his friends try to find a place to call home. Although it's mostly less about finding a home, and more about finding a second job. This is the debut of the worst character of all time, I mean TAKirby. He's fine. I've definitely seen more annoying characters, but he's really just Peach but without any of the charm. As well as weak, kind and cool. This is also the origin of that Kirby with a gun meme which 4 kids, being the party poopers they are, removed from the dub. I'm joking, I get why this scene was cut. However, just like with Kirby's dual role, it falls into the problem that I like the first half more than the other. The fight with Blocky is cool, but I vastly prefer the scenes where Kirby tries every single job and gets sabotaged by Diddy and his assistants in unique ways. Why TAKirby is on Kirby's side after this episode is beyond me.
21?
Taff decides to buy a go-kart vehicle from Gengu. Wait, that's illegal. But starts causing mischief around town, almost eating her sister and His Majesty. So he decides to buy one from Nightmare Enterprises and opens up a Grand Prix. Tiff initially declines the offer and forces Kirby not to join the race, but after having a talk with Meta Knight, she decides to be Taff's assistant and have Kirby join the race, with TAKirby being the guy who wakes him up every 5 seconds. It was fun. The first half of the first part isn't that interesting, but thankfully the rest makes up for it. I also like how Kirby isn't the one winning the race. I don't mind episodes like this that have the main character win for that reason, but I think that's a bit too overdone, and it's nice to see that the mayor of all characters was the actual victor here. The first part establishes how he wants to impress her wife so badly, so seeing him following his dreams and succeeding was pretty wholesome. Even better when we realized he wanted to join and win the race so he could give the trophy as a present for their 40th anniversary. And hey, it's not like Kirby was useless in this episode. Kennedy and Meta Knight constantly try to sabotage him, but they do so that Kirby comes back stronger every time and grows as a star warrior, at least when MK is doing the sabotaging. Like when he launches a missile at a cliff to make rocks fall on him, or when Sword and Blade remove the brakes, so he almost crashes his vehicle, only to make it fly before he dies. And he does defeat the king in the end, in wheel form, so nobody else gets sabotaged or physically hurt. Oh, and kudos to the animators for choosing Kirby's starship as the go-kart vehicle. It was nice seeing it after 33 episodes of absence. After the umpteenth accident, Chief Bokem is threatened to be fired and the police station removed. Everyone is shocked upon hearing this. Tough especially because back in his heyday, he was a cool ranger, fighting wolves as part of the military squad. So he, along with his friends and Kirby, decides to do all sorts of pranks in Cape Town to prove the chief's worth. Several pranks later, DDD and Escape Moon threaten him to be fired again, but accidentally start driving towards a volcano once Kirby takes a beehive full of wasps, leaving Tough behind at one point, and Chief gotta help him. It's a simple plot, but it works completely in its favor. Tough and his friends helping a character is a premise that writes itself. You also got some pranks I found rather amusing, such as Toggle Store getting cleaned out due to the many signs claiming that this merchandise was free. And I don't know, seeing Bokem trying to help Tough and eventually having to confess he never joined the military squad was pretty neat, as not only do we get to see a new, more vulnerable side of the chief, but also because someone that isn't Kirby saves somebody else's life, initially. So yeah, great plot, great execution, great characters. Go check it out. That's right, the Kirby series tackled global warming before it was cool. Greta Thunberg, eat your heart out. Anyway, how's the episode? Pretty good. Now, it does start like DDD's Snow Job, minus DDD ordering a monster to make Cape Town a cold wonderland. But unlike DDD's Snow Job, which introduced Chile at the end of its first half, we get to the main conflict in half the time. Penguins have decided to wander in Dreamland for a while before they can find a proper place to call their new home. Once upon a time, they used to live peacefully, but thanks to all the people who wasted their energy, including the people of Cape Town, it was destroyed. It's an okay approach to telling this story. We do get some motivation from them to visit this place, but that's really all they have. They constantly tell us about how conserving energy will do places like theirs a favor, but we see how badly it harms them only once. I get it that it's a kids cartoon, we can't show too much. I guess that they can't give this plot full justice, unless you have Courage the Cowardly Dog, but some more instances of that would have been cool. No pun intended. Also, I can deal with the penguins being jerks, arresting people for trespassing and whatnot, but DDD becoming a janitor and getting his castle taken over was a little too much. I mean, I guess without them being the antagonist, we wouldn't have had the iconic Kirby pouring the hot sauce into the volcano while singing scene, so I guess there's that. This episode is a bit messy, which is why it's slower, but it's mostly a solid watch with a pretty good moral. Man, look at that beginning! Anyways, this episode is about Knucklejaw challenging Kirby because he believed he killed his father. That's it, but it's all we needed out of a Knucklejaw story. I love how early on this kid is shown to be a badass, tossing every single Waddle Dee, breaking the castle, and tossing DDD's car outdoors. Also, Knucklejaw calls DDD and Nescar Gungrams, which is very likely the 2000s equivalent to boomers. Hearing him say such a word is pretty amusing. Also, Knucklejaw interrogating the police was mildly entertaining. Also, I like the part where MK stands up for Kirby and reveals he was the one who killed Knucklejaw's father because Nightmare corrupted him. Bonus points to the episode for telling us another chapter of his past.
まったくだ。そんなにまでして愛した息子が魔獣になってしまってはな。
I still think Meta Knight is the better rival for Kirby, but if the anime isn't interested in that, then Knucklejaw is a nice substitute. You know, until he isn't. I wanted to rank Horror of the Earth Tiger. I wanted to love it so badly. I mean, it's Wolfrat, the monster that almost killed both King Dedede and the MK, although the former wasn't hurt and the latter was just paralyzed. We also get to learn about Sword and Blade's backstory, how they met MK and why they're so loyal to him. and Galaxia Kirby. No, not Master Kirby, Galaxia Kirby. It's completely different. I don't know, maybe it's because the episode's premise sounded more interesting than the episode itself. Maybe it's because it showed too little about Sword and Blade Knight's past. Maybe it's because of the portal episode structure. Yeah, this episode takes place in one location, Castle Dedede, and when we see the interior and/or exterior of Castle Dedede almost every episode, it's not the only place we explore. Even Escargoon Squad had more locations. I don't know, I still like this episode at the end of the day, but it didn't hit me as hard as it should have.
カービィ、ダメだこりゃ。もうカービィったら鳥の巣で寝ちゃって本当に鳥になっても知りませんからね。
Didn't happen, but hey, he laid an egg. That's something. One day, Kirby wakes up finding out an egg in Tokori's nest. This happens to be no ordinary bird egg, but a cuckoo bird egg, so Kirby decides to look after it. Eventually it hatches, revealing a baby Galbo, who immediately becomes Kirby's friend. Again, for the third time in the show.
全然可愛くない。
Shut up, Taff, you're so stupid. This episode is actually pretty good, but that name feels like it's convincing you that the point of the episode is to hatch the egg, and that at the end the creature emerges. That's not the case, it happens right at the start of the second half. Even then, I think this type of plot would work better for a comedy show and, well, like I said in my Delivery Dilemma review, this show isn't cut out to make simple but hilarious stories. Most of the time anyway. The first half is okay, definitely the weakest part of the episode. The Kirby let the egg jokes get a bit old as the episode progresses, and Kirby acting like a bird's mother/father isn't as funny as the writers may have thought. But the second half is really good. Like with Dedede Snowjob, this is when the one-off character gets to interact with Kirby, and those scenes are really wholesome. He's even more like Kirby than the Pectrog, eating everything in sight and causing mass destruction. Unfortunately, he quickly becomes infamous in Capitan, and the villagers corner and attack him. Papa Kirby to the rescue! This scene especially shows how much Kirby has grown as a person. Not only could this be interpreted as "cut it out all of you, it's not their fault," but as "I lost 2 of my pets, give me a break too." Also, unfortunately, this episode ends in typical Kirby gets a pet plot fashion. Almost. You see, that's what brings this episode down for me, because so far you could debatably call this episode better than the super popular Kirby's Pet Peeve, but it's the last 5 minutes that hold it back from being a nastier episode. So King Dedede orders an adult Galbo so that Kirby's little buddy can finally reunite with its true parents. However, because he's attached to Kirby so much, he actually decides to stay with him and even stands up for him. The Galbo dies and Kirby cries. Wait, that rhymes. But seriously, the fact that this happened 3 times to Kirby must have taken its toll on him, realizing that every pet, every new friend, will eventually perish for one reason or another. That makes the part where he mourns the loss and cries a lot more powerful. It's great! And then Kirby almost destroys the adult Galbo and surprise surprise, his body is alright and they'll continue playing forever and ever. Hooray! Look, I'm happy the writers subverted the structure of your usual Kirby Pet episode. I'm happy that Kirby got to keep his friend, even though it doesn't appear in any subsequent episode. But this ending doesn't feel satisfying at all. It's just rushed because the episode's runtime was almost over. We need an ending. Have the episode focus less on Kirby looking over the egg, have it hatch sooner, and have him mourn his loss for a few minutes before he stands up to the adult Galbo, and have the ending play out the way it did. That would have made the ending more solid. It's still a great episode, don't get me wrong, but it's a bit messy. That said, if you prefer this episode over Kirby's Pet Peeve and Dedede Snowjob, I definitely get where you're coming from. It has all the qualities of those two episodes, but also a happy ending for a change. And that's really all the writers needed for the third and final Kirby Pet episode.